In today's video, we're going to be talking about the 3 keys to creating income in retirement. So think about it. You've gone all these years with working and working and working, and you've had a paycheck get delivered to your mailbox every single month or every 2 weeks for your entire life. Well, you're going to get to a point when you do retire and that paycheck no longer comes in, and now you're responsible for your paycheck. Now, if you're part of the 20% who have a pension, then maybe you are going to get some of that paycheck covered by that pension from your employer. But if not, you've got to create that income, and we're going to show you the 3 ways to do it most efficiently on today's episode.
Joe knows taxes.
Joe knows the market.
Joe knows Social Security.
Joe knows income planning.
Joe knows pickleball? No.
This is Joe Knows Retirement.
So the first key of planning for income in retirement, in my mind, has to do with taxes. Now, we have a 5-pillar approach that we go through with our clients here at Peak Retirement. And in this 5 pillars is tax planning, investment planning, income planning, healthcare planning, and estate planning. And if you see our logo there, that's going to show you that tax planning is the biggest pillar. And the reason I explain why it's the biggest pillar is because it's the one that we need to plan for the most. For most of the people we work with who have been diligent savers, who maybe have saved $1 million or more, they're going to be more so paying a lot more money in taxes because most of their money is in tax-deferred investments at this point. So anytime they take withdrawals, they have to pay taxes. And so in my mind, their biggest expense in retirement is not going to be their mortgage anymore. It's going to be their taxes that they're paying on Social Security, a tax-deferred investment, and any other income that they may have. And so that's why I always want to start off by talking about this. When we think of getting income from our investments, we need to make sure it's tax efficient, right? Everything plays off of that tax planning pillar, including our income planning. And so, for example, if you take out $100,000 for income over your retirement, well, what if you only keep $90,000 because you have to pay $10,000 to Uncle Sam to cover taxes? You didn't maximize that $100,000. You did not get to enjoy spending $100,000. You only got to enjoy spending $90,000. Well, what if we're more tax efficient, where we can get to a point when we take out that $100,000, we keep that $100,000, right? Because in retirement, income is not about what you take; it's what you keep. What do you keep after taxes? And that's the type of planning that we're talking about when we talk about tax planning. And that can happen when we decide, do we want to take out money from a Roth IRA or a traditional IRA in retirement? You know, if we take out from a Roth IRA in retirement, that is tax-free. We're going to get to keep all of that. If we take out from a traditional IRA or a 401k, you know, we take out $100,000 from there, well, we're not going to keep $100,000. We're going to have to pay our taxes because we have not paid taxes on that account yet. So those are the considerations that we have to look for. And then we also have to look for, which I'm going to talk about next, is Social Security. And that's the second key to income in retirement. And to play off of that taxes, we may not keep all of our Social Security. So Social Security could be taxable depending on your situation. Now, back before 1985, you didn't have to pay taxes on your Social Security regardless of your situation. Now, if your income is up to a certain point, you're going to have to pay taxes on your Social Security, and it could be up to an 85% of your Social Security benefit could be counted as income if you reach that point. Now, you also could find yourself with having Social Security tax-free if you have a low income. Now, having a low income may not necessarily mean that you are poor. You could have low income if you just plan the right way, and we're going to talk about what that could look like for you. And maybe that could be you. Maybe you could find yourself in a low-income situation but still live on $100,000 a year like some of the clients we work with do because they've been able to be proactive and do some tax planning now to allow their income be not only federal tax-free but also Social Security tax-free. And they may not have to file, when they file taxes, they may not have to pay any taxes even though they're living off $100,000 if they plan the right way. And so, you know, that's one of the stipulations, one of the considerations. But the other consideration is, when do we take Social Security, right? Social Security is going to account for 40% of our income on average is what studies show. So when we take this is going to be extremely important. Do we take it at 62 or do we take it at 70? And obviously there's pros and cons of taking it at either age. And we tell our clients to take it at any age in between. And I often ask, you know, when is the best time to take it? And, people will throw out all their different names. And I used to say, it depends. But I actually can't say that anymore because I was doing a Social Security presentation at a library here in Columbus, Ohio, and a guy came up to me afterwards and said, Joe, I love the workshop, but you got to quit using the word depends. You're talking to a bunch of old folks here. So I have had to watch the language I use now on that, but we truly don't know when the best time to take Social Security is. And I ultimately phrase it as, if you can tell me when you're going to die, I'll tell you when to take it, right? Because if we take it at 62 and we pass away at 65, well, that was the best idea, because if we would have waited till 70, then we wouldn't have gotten anything. Versus if we live till 90, well, then now taking it at 70 may start to make sense, because you're going to get almost double the amount if you wait from 62 to 70 paid to you for a longer period of time. And so that's going to make up for those 8 years of no payments, is typically what calculations show there. So you've got to do your own due diligence to see what's going to make sense for you. You not only want to look at those considerations, but also, are you married, right? Be aware of the survivor benefit. If one spouse passes away, one of the Social Securities goes away, but the higher one stays in place. So maybe you want to defer your benefit to make sure that your spouse is left with a higher amount. You also have to worry about the not only the survivor benefit like I just talked about, but the spousal benefit, where your spouse could get half of your full retirement age benefit. Maybe they didn't ever work and you worked and paid the maximum amount in the Social Security. Well, they can get half of your benefit even though they're not entitled to necessarily anything. So that can be a benefit too of waiting till that full retirement age versus taking it at 62, because if you take it at 62, they may only get half of your 62 versus taking it at 67 or 66 in odd months. You could get half of that amount, which could mean more benefits altogether. So those are the considerations to keep in mind, but not only health, as we've already mentioned, but also tax planning is a big one. We've seen some people wait till 70 to take it so they can do more strategies like a Roth conversion while they have a lower income from maybe 60 to 70 or 65 they retire then to 70, where they basically do not have to account for Social Security and they get the increase in Social Security, and so that when they do take Social Security, they can end up having it tax-free like we mentioned earlier. And so those are all the considerations there. So let me kind of put together section number 1 and 2 here of taxes and Social Security and kind of show how these two can play together in the future. And so I gave you a rundown of how this works, right? So there's a Social Security tax that's based on your provisional income. Up to 85% could be taxable or none at all. But then there's also something called the standard deduction. And the standard deduction says that if you're married filing jointly right now, you can take out about $29,700, maybe a little more depending on your age. And that money is tax-free. And so if all we have is we take out, $29,000 from our IRA, you don't have to pay any taxes on that because it's under the standard deduction. And so what if we strategically plan to a point in retirement where we take out, let's just call it $20,000 from our IRA. We take out $20,000 from our Roth IRA. Well, there's $40,000 of income right there. And as we know, if we take out from a Roth, no tax. If we take out from an IRA and it's under the standard deduction, no tax. And then what if we ensure that our Social Security is under that provisional income limit to make it tax-free? Well, then that $60,000 of Social Security, let's call it, now we have $100,000 of income. Well, what if we can get that Social Security tax-free because we utilize that Roth to keep the limits down, and we utilize that standard deduction, we utilize the lower amount in Social Security? Well, you could get $100,000 a year and pay no taxes. So very high-level illustration there, but you get the idea that if we can plan for all of these things combining together and just have the optimal amount in different vehicles, we may be able to utilize all those different vehicles, Social Security, IRA, Roth, but making sure that we utilize it in a strategic way to stay under the limits and plan proactively. And so with our clients, we have a lot of software and technology and reports and calculators to be able to show how do we find ourselves in that position. How much would we have to convert from the IRA to the Roth if we do want to take advantage of that opportunity when that time comes? And do we need to start taking Social Security now or 70, right? So again, all those decisions are going to play together, and that's why retirement planning can be so complex. It's not as simple as all the working years where all you've had to do is save, 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 and hope you have enough in your accounts by that time. We have to plan because we no longer have time for mistakes, and now the decisions have to be made. And if we don't make the right decisions, it can lead to 1 or 2 mistakes, which can really put us behind, or leave a lot of money on the table. And so that's why we always recommend make sure you're working with a team who understands how all of these things play together as you plan for that retirement. So those are the first 2 points. And then I want to talk about this third point here, which has to do with market volatility, right? There's always 2 considerations in my mind when it comes to income and retirement. It's the tax situation and it's the impact of the market. If we have everything in the stock market and the stock market, we have $1 million and it goes down, gets cut in half like it did in 2008, our $1 million is now worth $500,000. And then if we need $50,000 of income in retirement, we now have $450,000. And my question to you is that $450,000 in your first year of retirement going to be enough for you to maintain your lifestyle over the rest of your retirement? Are you going to be able to still take out $50,000 a year? Or are you either going to have to cut spending, go back to work, or hope the investment just grows and grows, grows high amount over the next few years? Well, that may not be putting yourself in the best position to plan out the retirement to what your goals were potentially, unless you do want to continue working for the rest of your retirement. And so this concept here, we call it the double loss concept, is when the market goes down in retirement and you take out money, it's a double loss. And do we have enough time to make that up at this point in our life? We're no longer 30 years old. We're 60 years old, and we're preparing for the next 20 to 30 years of needing this income when we don't have that paycheck coming in anymore, as we've talked about. And so you may want to start to consider getting more protected with some of your investments. We don't typically want to advise someone to be all protected with their investments because, again, we still have 20 to 30 years. We need some growth potential ongoing, but we do need a portion protected so that if the market's down, we don't have to pull from that stock market investment. If we have something protected, which right now there's with higher interest rates, there's a multitude of options that you can get a guaranteed 5%, 6% rate potentially depending on when you do this type of planning and when you see this video, depending on what interest rates are at that time. But hey, maybe that's a reasonable return for you, and you can protect your assets from any stock market that would go down. And so, just having enough there for 3 years or 5 years or 10 years to be able to weather a storm in the market. Now when the market goes down, you're not worried. You're not worried about going back to work. You're not worried about where's that next paycheck going to go from. It's all right there without having that market risk associated with it. So that's a consideration that you may want to think about. And we call it a bucket plan approach, right? Where we have that protected bucket and that growth bucket. Making sure we have enough in the protected bucket for income between the next 5 to 10 years is typically what we look at for our clients, depending on what their risk tolerance is. And maybe if you're really risk averse, maybe you want to have more than 10 years of income there. You may not necessarily need it in our opinion, because we believe that the market, if it's down over longer than a 10-year period of time, then we're probably going to have bigger issues that we're facing. But those are the considerations to think about. It all comes down to, where do you sit? How old are you? Where do you sit, right? If I had a 90-inch tape measure here, where do you sit on this tape measure? Do you sit at 30 like I mentioned earlier, or do you sit at 60? And if you sit at 60, how much closer you are to that 90 than you were at 30? And should you be invested the same way as you were 30 as in when you were 60? And so that's why we really want to make sure we plan for market volatility at this point in our retirement. It's called the fragile decade. 5 years before you retire and 5 years after. If the market goes down over that period of time, then you could put your portfolio at a lot of stress, and you may not have enough time to make that up based on that double loss concept. And that's what's called sequence of returns risk. So again, when we factor in all those three different types of things, taxes, Social Security, and market volatility, if we can put all of those in the right place, then that's where I start to feel confident in having a secure and stable and predictable income over our retirement that we can count on, that we don't have to worry about if the market's down 1 year. We don't have to worry about having to go back to work, or we can live and make sure that we maximize Social Security with all those years that we've worked hard for it, and ensure we get more in our pocket rather than Uncle Sam. And if we can do all those things the right way, well, then I think we can set up for success in retirement, and knowing that we don't have to worry about running out of money over our retirement to make sure that we have enough versus just guessing. So my biggest advice is make sure you work with a professional who does this every day, who does that comprehensive approach that, hey, we talked about a lot of different opportunities. We talked about income planning, we talked about tax planning, we talked about investment planning. We talked about 3 out of the 5 pillars in one strategy of getting income in retirement. So again, working with someone to do this comprehensive planning is going to ensure you maximize your income. If they only do income planning or investment planning, well, they may be leaving out one of the most important topics. And so you really want to make sure you're working with the right team at this point in your retirement. If you are looking to speak to our team about how we may be able to help you, there's a link in the description. You can click on it, schedule a 15-minute call with us, and we'll see if we can help you moving forward and see if it makes sense to set up another time to explore further about what it may look like to work with us. So hopefully this video has helped you. And again, just make sure you're aware that it's not how much you take out from your investments in retirement, it's how much you keep. So enjoy the rest of your day.